377 was one problem, we have 19 another.
On a daily basis, I have to hide the fact that I'm queer.
अगर मैं as a male person born हुआ हूँ तो वो जरूरी है कि वो मेरा gender है. I am not a cis heterosexual person. I am a cis homosexual person.
Gay partners रहना चाहते हैं, lesbian partner रहना चाहते हैं, तो उनको आजादी नहीं मिलती.
What about the equality to live? Do queer people get homes? No, they don't. They're not given houses on rent.
There's this fear instilled in everyone that is very deep rooted.
Whether it's insurance or in general in terms of having the same rights as a straight couple. That's the biggest challenge that's there right now.
हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस अप्लाई करने में बहुत चेंजेस होते हैं क्योंकि पहले तुमको एक्सप्लेन करना होता है कि हमारा सेक्स अलग है, हमारा जेंडर अलग है.
For me, a family doesn't have to be a family of a male and a female. Family is a group you can return to when everything is going wrong.
Family is something that binds you.
Family means to have somebody who can love me. It doesn't matter what gender or what sexuality.
Family doesn't mean your own siblings, your own parents. Family is about love, about care.
So your family consists of people you love and who love you, which could be your blood family and could be the family you make with your friends.
जो तेरे जीने की ही शर्त इनकलाब है.
In a historic verdict in 2018, India's top court decriminalized homosexuality by scrapping a colonial-era ban on gay sex. Despite the 2018 ruling, members of India's lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender LGBT community, as you just heard from them in that opening montage, complain about a lack of acceptance and discrimination against gay people in Indian society. LGBT activists say that while the 2018 ruling affirmed their constitutional rights, thousands are living in a twisted no man's land, decriminalized but with no rights. Decriminalized but without rights. And this could be anything. Even as, being denied rights such as finding a home or taking a partner to hospital, being able to give medical consent for treatment for a partner, pensions, adoption, even simpler things like club memberships for couples. But are things changing? Perhaps New Year's are for new beginnings, because this year Future Generali in Indian Insurance Company Limited has launched an LGBTQ, that's lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender campaign to focus on providing community members who are in a live-in relationship an equal opportunity to secure their health insurance needs. Basically, this is a corporate company announcing that it is taking a significant step towards normalizing same-sex relationships to include live-in partners, including same-sex partners, same-sex live-in partners. For that, they've expanded the definition, or the company's definition, of family across its retail health insurance offerings to include the LGBTQA community and live-in partners. So, what does this mean on the ground? What really changes? What could the fallout of this be? Is India ready? Joining us first on this special episode of We the People that focuses on the rights of LGBTQA community, we have the faces of this campaign, Yogi and Kabir, the hosts of a Spotify India original podcast, the Shuddh Desi Gay, which is a podcast that provides a glimpse into what it means to be a gay couple in India. We have Kabir joining us. Kabir, first and foremost, you and your partner, Yogi, are faces on giant billboards, on outdoor hoardings in major cities in India. How does that make you feel? Because, it is an image of two men. If we can pull up that image of two men in an intimate hug. It is normally an image you see of, the stereotypical husband-wife, where one is a provider. But here, I think it's actually refreshing. It's like two men together supporting each other. But it is a sensitive subject in a socially conservative country of 1.4 billion people, where speaking openly about homosexuality is taboo for many. How did it feel when you first saw it? Were you nervous? What were the reactions you got also?
Of course. Hi, Sarah. Thank you. Firstly, thank you so much for inviting me. Of course, it was... I think overwhelming would be an understatement, because it wasn't just what I was feeling, but in fact, the kind of responses that we were receiving on Instagram and, people calling us, messaging us, showing us our billboards, it was a surreal feeling, of course, because, when Future Generali reached out to us that they wanted to do something like this, we just jumped on it because we were like, we had to do this because, it was first. We always, in our conversations, whether it is in our podcast or via our social media, we make sure that we reach out and talk about how, our one-line description of our profile says it's a normal love story, boy meets boy. And that's how we wanted to lead our conversations and, put us as the face of such an inclusive initiative. It was just massive, amazing.
So you were trying to normalize this discussion and conversation like we are tonight. But, Kabir, I think the pandemic has taught us one thing, that life is unpredictable. And it's important, to make smart investments in life. There's a greater realization that you want to create, or you need to create a safety net for our loved ones. Whether you are straight or whether you are gay, right? It's the same for all. Everyone has the same base human instincts to protect the ones you love. Why did you agree to be the face of this product per se, this campaign? How does it help? Why is it important? What changes? Because I'm sure you get many endorsements. Why did you pick this?
Right. That's there. But, as simply as you've just said that, it's the protection of our loved ones is very much a basic human right. Right. But that's not how the market sees it, or at least up till now has seen it. It was only Future Generali that saw that vision and went after it and actually made a product out of this. Just to give you a glimpse of how I felt was, when the pandemic started, I actually was in Delhi and my partner was back in Bombay. And in Mumbai, and while the entire paranoia was, the fever was up about what exactly, there was so much of disinformation. I was scared, just the mere thought of him going to a hospital and, God forbid if something went, down south, went south, I just felt like I was afraid because, Yogi's 10th cousin would have more rights than me. So it's a very difficult position for me. At that point in time, it was a very difficult position for me to be in. And so when you start talking about things like insurance and stuff, it's still, I think, a privileged conversation to have. Yeah. The basics begin with the mere existence of acceptance of our existence. That's
all right.
Where
I have Ms. Anup Rao, actually, the MD and CEO of Future Generali India Insurance. Mr. Rao, welcome. What made you think specifically about the LGBTQIA community?
So I think it's not about thinking about it. It's about just acknowledging it. For us, the journey was a little different. We wanted to be an inclusive employer. So over the last couple of years, we had done a lot to actually help people come out open at work. We had celebrated Pride Week. We had Selena, who was also on the show, who actually helped us and handled us through the journey. And we decided that at some stage we need to put our money where our mouth is. It's very easy to say that these are our values and they're on our website, and then every town hall you talk about it. But then it's important that organizations really go beyond that. And we said, fine. We have done whatever we can to make us an inclusive organization, create an enabling environment, make sure everyone is welcome. By the way, not just about the LGBTQI community, but also people with disabilities, people who are older, so ageism is a problem. The especially able finding, fulfilling work is a problem, so on and so forth. But as far as this was concerned, we were very clear that, that we wanted to take this forward to the next level and help spark a conversation.
All right. You say you wanted to put your money where your mouth is. And how did India respond to seeing this gay and couple or a lesbian couple on a hoarding that's not been seen before? And I ask you this in the context that, this is a business decision. I ask this in the backdrop of companies like Tanishq, etc., who faced a backlash and it's affected the company's bottom line.
So, well, the response has been encouraging. Obviously the campaign has been successful. We got over 12 million impressions on social media. I'm not sure what it's going to do for our business, but like I said, that's clearly not the point. The fact is that, we as an organization stand for something, That's what we want to put out there. I'm not really concerned at this point in time about the quantity of volumes we write, but then our brand stands for something. And that should mean something to people who may be gay, who may be straight. I mean, and if you talk about how India has reacted to the campaign, we have had thousands of complaints, thousands of comments, 83% of them have been positive. So only 17% have been negative. And mostly from, a lot of predatory accounts, and some of them are very few followers. But I think by and large, it's been a grand success. Look, what we are happy about is that it started a conversation. And I think Kabir put it out well. I think something like insurance should not be a privilege, should not be restricted to a few people. It shouldn't be defined by your sexuality or your gender. And hopefully this will lead to other organizations coming forward and doing this. Look, I mean, I was surprised when we learned that we are the first organization which has actually gone out there and advertised a product for the gay community. I was very surprised to hear of that when I was first told that.
All right, so you're saying it's not you didn't only think about it as a business, but it should mean something. What exactly does this mean on the ground? Let's bring in Arvind Narain. He's an author and visiting faculty at the Azim Premji University at the National Law School, author and founding member of Alternative Law Forum that works with human rights issues, including LGBT issues. So, Mr. Narain, what does this mean on the ground? Will this hold on the ground, legally, for example, on the point of redefining a family? Could you explain to our viewers what the law says on this? I mean, could you have a situation where I may sign up for an insurance policy, but I go to a hospital and they don't accept the claim because this is India and, what works on paper may not work on the ground. Is that even possible here?
Yeah, I'd just like to begin by firstly congratulating Kabir on being on the advertisement. That's really, really, really fantastic. As being a long-term activist on LGBT rights for the last number of years, I think one reason, with respect to future generally, the reason they did it now is one very important point. It's because of the judgment in 2018 in Navtej Singh Chauhan, which really liberated, opened up the possibilities around the world and around the country. In particular, what the justices have said is discrimination exists in the sphere of the state, discrimination exists in the sphere of society, and it's up to all of us to act to remedy that discrimination. And that's the initiative which a general has taken to try and address that. And your question, the problem we face is our laws are deeply imbued with the notion of family and the notion of marriage. A lot of the benefits which people are entitled to come out of marriage and come out of the question of blood and marriage. So in a sense, we look at labor law benefits. We look at as rightly said, your right to determine the treatment as far as your partner is concerned. If you look at healthcare benefits, a range of these benefits are really structured by the laws around by the notion of the heterosexual family. So I think to challenge that is, as the judgment in Navtej in 2018 is a long-term challenge. And one way to see the current petition on the marriage case in the Supreme Court is also another step forward in this way of challenging these deeply encoded stereotypes as far as LGBT people are concerned. And we hope that we get a positive judgment, and that will really open out a way of really addressing this question of discrimination in all areas of law and life, really.
All right, and also it's interesting to ask, how campaigns like this one or other corporate programs or other programs that focus on inclusion act to influence the law going forward. I have, let's bring in Sachin Jain, also working very interestingly in this field. He's the administrator of GHAR, which actually stands for Gay Housing Assistance Resource. Very clever over there. It's a housing group for LGBTQ plus Indians on Facebook. It began with the belief that it's imperative to create safe spaces for LGBT-friendly spaces for members of this community. Just in case anyone is thinking, what is the need for this show? Supreme Court ne to decriminalize to kar li hai. What is the need for this show? Why are we doing all this? What is the reality of the community navigating everyday issues that we, the heterogeneous majority perhaps take for granted, like finding a home or going to a hospital or booking an online health test?
Yeah, so Sarah, I'd like to talk a little bit from the point of view of queer housing and the difficulties that are faced by LGBT people in housing. So if you think of every stakeholder who's involved in the housing process, whether it is the real estate broker or the landlord or the neighbors or the flatmates, a host of problems can arise for the LGBT person here. Sometimes with the broker itself, it is self-selection. So the person may not even be shown a property if they are visibly gender non-normative. Often with neighbors, there is interference, there may be harassment. With landlords, there may be discrimination where people are suddenly told to leave the flat without any reason. And one of the biggest problems is of flatmates. So typically what happens is that many young people come from smaller cities to larger cities like Mumbai, Delhi or Bangalore to be able to lead a free queer life. And what happens is that when they are renting along with straight flatmates who may be homophobic, they go right back in the closet. And because of that, that entire purpose for which they came to the city gets defeated. And this affects all aspects of their life. So for example, if a person is not able to be free in the place which is most intimate to them, which is their home, they cannot have friends over, they are keeping on self-censoring themselves, it affects their ability to have a relationship, it kills their confidence, it stunts their development of their own identity, and then they also are unable to form a bond with the community, it affects them professionally, etc.
Absolutely. So it's not just about free, possibly also safe sometimes.
Yeah, so the people have faced various kinds of problems in renting. So there's been verbal harassment, physical harassment, even going up to torture sometimes. And even now, after, as Arvind said, after 2018, things have changed. And to add to what Arvind is saying, one big difference that I found is that the impunity with which there used to be vigilantism has reduced now. So earlier, the moral police or the vigilantes, whether they were domestic within the home or outside the home or in the community, felt that the courts and the government were backing them.
Yes.
But today, there is, as much as there is a stigma on homosexuality, there is also a stigma in society on homophobia, and all of these contrasting, effects are playing out. So even our society is in a state of flux.
All right, our society is in a state of flux. We have also joining us Selina Jaitley. As mentioned earlier on the show, we'll have her on, actor, writer, diversity consultant. You know her perhaps as the Miss Universe runner-up as an actor, but she's also a diversity consultant. She's a UN human rights equality champion. Selina, thank you for joining us. Now, since we're talking about redefining family today, I know, of course, you are a mother now. What, according to you, Selina, makes a family a family?
It's the basic human right for a person to live with another person, to feel safe, to feel secure, to have a home, to maybe bring in a child at some point later in their life. But just the right to live and experience life together with another person, in every sense of the way, whether it's financially, whether it's physically, whether it's buying a house, whether it's experiencing the agonies and ecstasies of life together, that constitutes to being a family. And I think every human being should have that right, because that falls under their right to life as such.
And how does one spread this message of awareness, like to a larger audience, for example?
The thing is, everything starts in this world with a small conversation. And it is very important to have these small conversations on a mega scale so that the message gets out there. Basically, that is what we do with United Nations Free and Equal campaign. But having said that, I think given that 377 has been repealed from India, it is very important for corporates, for products to come forward, which are also inclusive in nature and not just catering to, their version of what a family should be, or their version of what equality is, or their version of what gender is, you see. So what, for example, Future Generali has done with this new insurance program, which is absolutely brilliant for same-sex couples, I think this is a great step towards inclusion on a massive scale, because, what happens is it allows people to live their lives safely. you see, to live as a family unit safely together. And I think that falls under giving the most basic of a right to a human being to practice to live as a family unit safely and without any doubts in case of unforeseen circumstances as to what will the outcome be just because you belong to a different gender or a different background or your sexual orientation is different.
Well, as you know, reassuring and warming it is to hear all of these opinions. The fact is, we don't only want to talk in a silo. The reality is that we live in a large society. Same-sex relationships are decriminalized, but public morality around same-sex relationships continues to be a thorny issue. In one state court filing last year, the Law Ministry said relationships between same-sex individuals is not comparable with the Indian family unit, the concept of a husband, a wife, and children. And there have been many heated debates on primetime TV shows, editorials in newspapers over whether it's time for India to step up to the plate, join other countries that have legalized same-sex marriage, etc., etc. But joining us now is Rahul Ishwaran. He's a right-wing activist also. Rahul, you have said, it's good to also hear the other point of view, to understand what one is up against. You have said before that you don't agree with stretching the right to be considered a family to the LGBTQ community. What is the problem in giving same-sex live-in couples the status of a family?
There are 2 points. One, being a Hindu right-wing conservative activist, I oppose with the entire paradigm our liberal friends put up with regarding the LGBTQIA. Second, but with greatest of respect, may I offer my respect to Kabir and especially Anupra of Future Generali. They have taken a very nice campaign. I believe the middle ground has shifted considerably in the past 10 years, where we had a meeting in 2021 where there were a community organization. We all agreed that homophobia was bad. Homophobia is something we will never endorse. We will never have that kind of a stereotyping attitude, and we should not have any kind of discrimination towards any of our brothers and sisters. That is absolutely not right. I know Pop, perhaps speaking for every community, said, who am I to judge the LGBT community? And Pujaniya Sarsang Chalag of RSS, Mohan Bhagavat, just few days ago, also endorsed the same line where we may have respectful difference, respectful reservations and divergence of point of view, but homophobia, discrimination are absolutely uncalled for. But having said that, with due respect, there are some serious questions even in the scientific community regarding whether there is a gay gene, whether it is a natural or more of a cultural phenomenon. That is there definitely as an intellectual, scientific and cultural debate. Let that definitely stay along. Even there is strongly in US and the other so-called advanced Western nations too. Such a debate do definitely exist. So let us be mindful about that debate. And having said that, and the family structure, because we all feel family is sacrosanct and marriage is more of a sacrament, sacrosanct, and it should be more aligned with nature. A male and female should be there. India as a society, which is in large part conservative, traditional, like me, we do have such reservations. Of course, it is up to the Supreme Court to come out with a decision, but there is a huge majority of people who are uncomfortable. So the way ahead is some kind of conversation, some kind of engagement, some kind of discussion.
But let me ask, apart from this discomfort, personal views, religious views on this matter, the Constitution of our country in its preamble says a right to life, right to dignity, right to equality for all Indians, right?
No, nobody disagrees with that. No, there can be different interpretations of how to apply it, but as on principle, I believe there should not be discriminated on parts of taking house or any public function. These are all given. One of my closest friends, who is from fashion industry in South India, he belongs to a gay community, and we share one of the most very good friendship we have. So there is respect, but there is divergence and disagreement. Let me be honest about it, because there is a huge majority of people who may have divergence, but will not, tell it to our liberal friends for the fear of being branded homophobia. That's the reason why we don't absolutely disagree with homophobia. We will never endorse it. At the same point of time, marriage is an institution. Monogamous marriage where male and female is there is still considered sacrosanct, and for every religion, whether it be Hindu, Christian or Muslim, that's the premise. But there should not be a judgmental attitude, and that is the official position of the Catholic Church, official position of RSS, and some positive Muslim organizations also agree with it. But there is divergence, and I believe we should tread a very cautious path, because family is a different institution altogether. We all consider in a different dimension. So whether India is ready for that, I still have my reservations.
Whether India is ready for that is unclear, says Rahul Ishwar. And I'm just going to quickly ask Arvind Naren to quick response before I go back to Selena, please.
Just a very quick response on that to Rahul. Thanks for Rahul for the comments that he made. But just to distinguish the fact that there's something called the Special Marriage Act. There's marriage in the Hindu law as well as in the Christian or Muslim law. And the Special Marriage Act is a secular statute. The idea of the Special Marriage Act is the fact that you will take marriage outside the sphere of religion. So my question to Rahul is, fine, if we accept the fact that the religious sensibility is involved, the current petition before the Supreme Court is very clear. You're challenging it in terms of the Special Marriage Act, saying that two persons across lines of religion, caste, and sexuality can marry each other. Would you have a problem with marriage under the Special Marriage Act? Is the question I'd have.
All right. I don't want to make this a debate about, Special Marriage Act and legalizing marriage for, same-sex marriage. But I want to just focus on the fact that what can we do given the fact that the Supreme Court has taken that historic decision? What can we all do in our own personal spheres to respect that decision taken by the Supreme Court? Let's go back to Selena, who's joining us from Switzerland. So let me go to her. We have this example of Future Generale extending health insurance to same-sex couples. It gives them a tool to plan for the long term. In your opinion, what else could corporate India do to extend the same rights to same-sex couples that others don't have? And they have publicly spoken about this.
You see, this is not just on a corporate level, even as cinema makers, for example, change needs to occur at every different level, even in the education system. The conversations about the queer community need to be included in the corporate modules and corporate policies, the HR policies. Corporates need to be discussing and including inclusion policies on a massive scale. The price of exclusion is very heavy and it affects everyone. Companies and organizations who do not have inclusive policies are basically not complying with the international human rights obligations as such. So it is very important for corporates to include within their HR policies which are of an inclusive nature for LGBT people, for LGBT couples, for families which are queer families as such. You see, for trans people who have different needs, who have different medical policy needs. So corporates need to either take a stand, or there is no, half way of thinking that yes, I am a part of inclusion, but I will not make it a part of my HR policies or my corporate policies. There are no two ways. You can't dilly-dally when it comes to making policies of inclusion. Either you are inclusive corporate, or you are actually facilitating prejudice against the LGBTQIA or the queer communities.
A very strong statement there that if you're not part of the movement, if you're not helping or speaking up, then you're actually facilitating and being part of the discrimination. So Anup Rao, last word to you. What would your advice be to those who haven't yet warmed up to equal rights of the LGBTQ community?
So in my opinion, I think a lot of this comes from ignorance, and I don't mean that from a sanctimonious point of view. I think it's just lack of exposure and understanding. And I just want to give you an example. So there's a friend of mine, he's a celebrated figure. He's on television a lot of times, including on your channel. And a couple of years back, he told me that, he doesn't believe that homosexuality should be decriminalized in India. And that gay marriages should be allowed. And I was amazed because this guy used to keep quoting Oscar Wilde to me. And I asked him, are you aware that Oscar Wilde was bisexual? And his favorite band was Queen. And I asked him about Freddie Mercury. And I think that's when the penny really dropped for him. I mean, a lot of people enjoy Karan Johar movies. And you can't say that I enjoy his movies, but I'm not going to make peace in the sexuality. I mean, I think it just doesn't work that way. I think there are enough and more examples. Rahul spoke about our mythology or our civilizational past. But I do think that we come from a space which is fairly liberal. I think, and I'm not an expert, but then Lord Vishnu taking the form of Mohini or Shikhandi in the Mahabharata, I think enough and more examples that our mythology doesn't really proscribe or doesn't make space for people who are gender fluid or from a different sexuality.
Rahul, I know you want to respond, but we're completely out of time. But clearly, you know, there is this matter is being heard before the court, and we will continue to have this conversation. And thank you to Future Generale for giving us an opportunity today, a peg as we call it in this industry, to bring the focus, the spotlight back on this important issue of equal rights to all. Thank you all for joining us on We the People as we attempt to redefine family tonight. Bye-bye.